Hi there, everybody. This is Bill Houston, and you're watching the Bill Houston podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Please donate if you can to the link below, tinyurl.com. Donate to Bill Houston. If you don't do PayPal, my USPS address is P.O. Box 22, Endicott, New York, 13761. Or you can just Google Bill Houston's fracking resume. All of those details, my PayPal and my snail mail address, are all right there. And I really need your support in order to continue doing this work. And I'm under a lot of pressure, which I'm not going to get into right now, but I have a lot of pressures on my life right now, friends. So really could use your support if you appreciate the work that I've done. If you just Google Bill Houston's fracking resume, you can see what I've done in the past 10 years. And I have a pretty long history of doing good public service work. We got this very important NYSEG rate case coming up. They only happen once every 3 years. They're proposing a rate increase for electric rates up to 24%, and for gas rates, I think it was up to 4%. If you want to make a comment, this is your opportunity. If you want to file comments by mail, so here's how you do that. You address the envelope and direct the comments to the Honorable Kathleen H. Burgess, Secretary, Public Service Commission, 3 Empire State Plaza, Albany, New York, 12223. You can call the opinion line, 1-800-335-2120. That's 1-800-335-2120, 24 hours a day. Comments provided through this line are not transcribed, but a summary is provided to the ALJ and the Commission for their consideration. Comments submitted by these alternative means are requested by August 26, 2019, though comments will be accepted throughout these proceedings. Once again, the 2 docket numbers you need to reference are 19E 0378, that's for electric, and also 19G 0379, that's for gas. You can also email comments to secretary@dps.ny.gov. That's secretary@dps.ny.gov.
Okay, at this time, if you have any questions for the company, I'm going to ask if you would come up to the podium and use the microphone so that everybody can hear the questions that you ask. We are going to go till around 5:55, and then if you're still asking questions, I'm going to have to cut you off, unfortunately, because we do have to take a few minutes to get ready for the public statement hearing, and which we will begin promptly at 6 o'clock. So if you do have questions, please make your way down to the podium and ask your questions. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for providing this hearing. I wish you had provided more details on a lot of these things you're talking about. One question right off the bat is, you're talking about replacing a pipeline. Is the replacement of that pipeline the same diameters, the same capacity, same flow rate, or are you planning on increasing the flow rate on this pipeline?
So the derider line is currently comprised of 8 and 10-inch line. We're proposing to replace that with 12-inch. The cost differential isn't that much to go from 10-inch to 12-inch. The real issue with the derider line, and that potentially could provide us with more capacity, but there also are constraints on the upstream Dominion pipeline with capacity there. So we technically can't bring any more gas in off the upstream pipeline.
Okay, well, I'm going to provide a comment on that later. The other question I have is, you're talking about this advanced metering infrastructure technology, which sounds great, but again, very little detail. What I'm looking for is, does that enhance the ability for using the batteries that many people are already starting to buy in terms of being built into electric vehicles, to use that as storage for the grid so that you can provide incentive payment for them to use their car batteries as storage to suck back to the grid when the grid is under high demand, and for people to get credit to charge their cars when the usage is low. Can you answer that question, please?
Yeah, I'm not aware it's going to help with storage. What it can do is allow us to measure usage at a much more granular level and provide that to customers. And what then will allow us to do is to price the product on a more granular basis, so that somebody with an electric vehicle or that wants to charge their battery would be able to see prices presumably cheaper during certain hours, which would provide you the signal to charge batteries during those hours, and then use that battery when the price is higher during the day. So it's not going to do anything to store the energy, but it's going to allow us to be able to be much more granular to measure customers' usage, and then to be able to work on programs and new pricing programs to be able to take advantage of peak off peak, more granular pricing, so that signals are there to allow you to charge batteries when the price is low, and then to use the battery when the price is high.
But would you be able to provide the electric vehicle owner the opportunity to sell power back onto the grid when the grid is under high stress due to high demand?
That could be a program in the future. I don't think we're there yet with
Would
that.
these meters allow that to happen?
The meters themselves won't.
But would you need to change meter capability to make this happen?
I guess to make power go back to the grid, it's more than the meter.
Basically what I'm saying is, if you need a different type of meter to make this this thing I'm asking about happen in the future, this capability that you're not planning for right now, I would suggest that you look into these meters to make sure that they have whatever capability is needed in terms of keeping track of what's going on with a potential, and it's not just a battery electric vehicle owner, it's also people are buying their home battery systems, placing them on the wall. You need to accommodate that as well. Is this part of what the meter can do or not?
I am not as familiar with the complete technology of the AMI meter. There is a section of the test, there's a very substantial amount of testimony on AMI that you can look at that provides a lot more information that might be able to provide you a little bit more of what you're looking for.
Where is this available?
It's available on the website, dps.ny.gov, under the case numbers that we mentioned earlier and Judge Costello read off. And if you look at the section of the case, you can look at testimony, and there's an advanced metering section along with testimony and exhibits that you can look at, and there's dozens of pages of testimony that probably can give you a little better insight than we can give you here tonight.
All right, and I know I'm hogging the microphone here, but another thing that is just a key thing too is you're talking about battery storage. How big battery storage these two projects you're talking about?
I can't answer the specifics. That's in the rep and the customer point of view.
Yeah, it's more than 10 megawatts. It's at certain substations that we're testing these batteries. So again, there's much more detail on the specifics of that. Again, in the testimony, you'll want to look at the Reforming the Energy Vision testimony on the website.
Okay.
There's a whole section on battery storage.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Hi there. Yeah, I was actually, looking for more detail too. Now, at the end, your presentation, ma'am, the storage was electric storage, because it wasn't clear to me what kind of storage you were talking about, electric or gas. It was electric.
Electric batteries.
Got it. Okay. So the other thing, at the end of, sir, your presentation, the very last thing you said after you talked about the De Ruyter pipeline upgrade or replacement. Let me just ask this first. Is the original De Ruyter pipeline going to remain in service once the new pipeline gets added?
No, it's a replacement of the existing pipeline.
So that's going to be abandoned in place. The original De Ruyter pipeline, the 8 and the 10, that's going to be abandoned.
I'm not sure if it's going to be abandoned or removed, but it will no longer be utilized.
Okay. Mostly the time they're abandoned because it's just a lot more costly to pull the pipe out of the ground. Let's see. This is not something I know a lot about, but I hear enough online from people that a lot of people have concerns about this, the smart grid meters as being sources of very strong electromagnetic pulses Is there any, has NYSEG or has the, are you all NYSEG people, by the way, or Avangrid? Okay, so, but there's the judge, there's nobody here from the Public Service Commission to actually speak on this then? Okay.
But I'm not here to answer questions.
I know, okay. So I guess my question is, what has NYSEG or Avangrid done any studies on the health impacts? You know, a lot of people have concerns about these smart meters.
So I'm going to direct you to the automated meter testimony on the website. There's a lot of detail in there. We have looked at what the impacts are. We look to professionals who know a lot more about this stuff than we do as utility professionals to look to what are the concerns, because there's health concerns, there's data privacy concerns. We're aware of those, so those are all addressed in the testimony.
And the testimony, it's a huge docket. Can you point me a little, which testimony?
So when you look at the docket, there are different sections of testimony. For example, I did the customer service testimony with a group. There's one that is advanced metering.
Okay.
And that's the testimony this would be in.
Okay, and my last question is, because people are talking about the De Ruyter pipeline is going to be triple the capacity because they're assuming that the original line is going to remain in place. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Hi. I guess one question that I have is some things that I'm looking for when I go to that website, it's really not easy to find things. When you say go to some of the testimony, I mean, is there some, like a point of contact where I can get direction to specific articles to look at? Am I just hunting around?
What I would do is speak to the gentleman in the back. His name is Andrew Bisnet. He can help you out or give you contact information about someone that you might be able to call to help you navigate the system.
So if we have specific questions, instead of going through like...
They won't be able to answer questions about the specific questions about the documents, but they can point you where the documents are and how to best find them.
I've just gone out there, it's hard trying to find specific information.
So if you're going to look for our original testimony, if you put in the case number, there's a bunch of stuff and it's all listed by date. If you go down, our filing was made on May 20th, so if you go down to the 5/20 date, you will see sections, they're alphabetical, so AMI would be one of the first ones, advanced metering. There would be the testimony, and then there would be the exhibits, two separate documents for that, and then you can just open the PDFs.
Okay, I guess it's part of the advanced meters. And one of the things that I was trying to find is the 23.7% increase. What portion of that is attributed to those smart meters? Is that...
I don't know from a percentage perspective, from an overall perspective, and this is not just NYSEG. I can only give you the total cost for NYSEG and RG&E, so it wouldn't be specific to NYSEG. The business case that's in the testimony would have it broken down. It's $500 million approximately for the two companies, for gas and electric.
Yes, but that's for the cost of the total investment over
Right.
a number of years. In the first year, there's virtually no cost for AMI.
Right.
There's the introduction of some basic information, but as we go forward after this year, we're introducing the project to get approval, and then the cost for AMI more of the cost would enter into rates in subsequent years.
Okay, so the 23.7% increase then doesn't really include the cost of AMI?
Very little, I'd say, at this point.
Well, okay.
Introduction of some AMI, but again, as Terry said, we're looking to begin implementing or installing meters in 2021. This case is for 1 year, 2020 to 2021, so just some introductory AMI costs are in there, I'd say.
Okay, so in 2021 or whenever you start rolling these meters out, then there's going to be another case for another increase to cover that?
Well, we've provided information in the case for costs for the next, I think, 5 years to get an idea of what this is going to look like. And as Judge Costello mentioned, while this is a 1-year case and it's looking at cost for just 1 year, beginning in April 2020, there's an opportunity for us to potentially settle the case and settle for multiple years. For example, the rates that were set in the prior case that I mentioned in 2015, we ended up filing for 1 year and ended up with a 3-year settlement of rates. So it's possible that we will also settle this case, and it's possible that we'll cover more years, and if we do, some of those AMI costs would come into play.
Yeah, but right now, the 23.7, there's a very small amount of that
I would say that's
really
correct.
is applicable to the smart meters, right?
That's correct.
And I guess looking to the future then, so the thing that will be increasing is the delivery charge only?
We're just filing, we just control the delivery portion of the system, so these are
Yep.
just affecting the delivery rates.
Right. And currently, I guess I'm not 100% sure about this, currently the delivery charge is fixed, is that correct?
The delivery charge is made up of a fixed and a variable component. So for a residential customer, the fixed monthly charge is $15.11, and then there's a cost per kilowatt hour. There's a variable component as well. Those two in combination is known as the delivery charge.
Okay, so in the future then, that variable portion, if you put in a smart meter, that'll be good for, possibly that will increase, right? So your delivery charge may change because of your usage based on what the smart meter is indicating, right? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand.
So if there's a variable portion of your delivery rate with smart meters, that'll give you the ability to charge a higher fee at peak hours, right?
It could. We haven't put those rates in place yet.
No, but potential is there, right?
Potential is there to look at more granular pricing like that, but we have not yet made any such proposals. But it's certainly a possibility, yes.
Okay. And I guess the only benefits that for the smart meters are what you had listed. There were three things: no estimated meters. There's some things people could look at usage real time, right? Those are really there's no enhancement to infrastructure, correct? By having a smart meter. So it's not going to make the infrastructure more reliable, or
What it can do is, so the meter talks to our system, so we would know, and right now we have to depend on a customer to call us to tell us that their power's out. And then based on the number of customers that are calling, we make a prediction of, we think this section of our service is out. With the smart meters, we will know because the meter's going to tell us, these are the people who are out, so that will allow us to identify where the issues are more quickly, as well as respond and restore more quickly. So from that perspective, and I will encourage you to read the testimony because there's a lot of benefits laid out in there, but absolutely from an outage management perspective, we will be able to more quickly respond.
that's more for rural areas, right? I mean, I've been living here over 30 years, and I think I've lost power maybe once, maybe twice. So,
Well, we're happy to hear that.
all right, thank you.
Hi. You mentioned that you will be focusing on cleaner and more renewable energy, and you mentioned distributed generation. I want to know if natural gas is part of distributed generation.
I'm going to say no. I mean, the distributed generation that we're dealing with and interconnecting on our system today is primarily solar and some wind and some other renewable technologies. I can't say that gas, there could be some...
I've heard otherwise. That's what
well,
I'm
there could be
asking.
some industrial operations. I mean, from a small customer perspective, I'd say no. From a large customer perspective, they could be adding some type of cogeneration that depends on gas, or they've already had that kind of generation. But the technology what we talk about here, particularly for the smaller customers, is not gas driven. It's primarily solar and other renewable technologies.
So just for larger customers?
We know that there's large customers that have cogeneration and they generate some of their electricity with gas. We do know that. That's been happening for many years. So those would be the kind of customers, I think, if anybody's going to put gas on the system, it would be the larger ones if it's available, but certainly not the majority of the kind of distributed generation we're seeing coming on the system today from the smaller customer.
Okay. And I'm just curious about why we need a DeRuyter pipeline upgrade. Is this because it's getting old and it's leaking? And if so, what is the leakage rate of the DeRuyter currently, and how do you measure it?
Yeah, let me just check, because I do have some information on that. Actually, it's here.
And I don't mean to rush people, but there are a number of people that are still waiting to ask questions, and we have around a little over 10 minutes left of this portion. So please, just to allow other people to get their questions asked, I'd ask you to focus on your most important questions.
So there was a data request specific to this, and there are no leaks on the DeRuyter pipeline in the last 5 years. However, just due to the age getting close to 70 years, it's getting to the end of its life, and it needs to be replaced. We only had one documented leak on the DeRuyter pipeline on a seam, which was a mill defect, and that was corrected years ago. So really no leaks on the DeRuyter pipeline at this point.
Okay.
Hi. So I want to talk about the DeRuyter also, but I don't want to get into some inane debate about what semantics and what words like capacity mean. I do have to say that I think it's absolutely absurd for NYSEG to claim tonight that it's not expanding gas infrastructure when it plans to more than double the amount of gas that could physically be put through a pipeline by increasing the diameter, increasing the cross-sectional area to allow for more gas to move through that line. So my question for you is, are you aware that recently Dominion just pursued a project called Dominion New Market, which added 40,000 horsepower of compression into the system, capability into their system?
That is not something I'm aware of.
Aha. I see. And also that there's been talk about a Dominion New Market too, where they could potentially add even more. So, I think when we talk about words like fully subscribed, I think there needs to be some accuracy here in what that means. When you say fully subscribed, my question is going to be, what do you mean by that? Because as I understand it, fully subscribed simply means that Dominion has contracts as buyers for whatever gas it puts into the line today. It doesn't mean that they can't put more gas into the line and get more customers later. It just means that they have buyers for whatever gas they put in today. Am I wrong about that?
I'm not sure. My understanding is that there's so much capacity in the Dominion pipeline, and all of that has been purchased by downstream buyers, and it's being used.
Yes, the gas that's being put into the pipe is being paid for by customers who use it. I hope we can make some more sense of this as time goes on. Thank you.
How y'all doing? I got a couple questions. Two of them are rhetorical. You have a very polished and smooth presentation there. Congratulations. I find it hard to believe that these trees you're so concerned with popped up just in the last few weeks. I look at that as a failure to maintain the system that should have been maintained for years. That's a failure on your part. Don't blame it on the trees, okay? Also, in your very polished and smooth presentation, I'm getting hard of hearing in my older age, but I didn't hear a word about wind or solar, or how that's going to connect to this project, if it is at all, okay? So you don't have to answer these, but this one I'd like you to answer. Do you appreciate the irony in your industry responsible to some degree for climate change, for the bad storms you're also concerned with? You coming to us, a proud environmentalist, and saying, we need to do this to shock-proof this system, to harden the system, on your dime, a problem that you helped to create. Do you appreciate the irony in that? No answer? Thank
you. Did you lobby the Public Service Commission to do away with net metering, which was so elegantly simple, but was obviously costing you some money? And also, another question, with the smart metering, with the smart metering, will that not save you a good bit of labor costs? Because my personal experience is that meter readers come to my house about once every 4 or 5 months. So those are two questions for you. Oh, and also another question is, did you meet with Senator Seward? Mark Marini, did you meet with Senator Seward? Have you been lobbying Senator Seward on this issue for the gas pipeline?
I have not met with Senator Seward. Others at our company may have met with him, but I have not. As far as your first question about lobbying the Public Service Commission, we're regulated by the Commission. We don't lobby the Commission. We certainly participate in proceedings that the Commission initiates and implements. Net metering was changed for all of New York State based on Commission proceedings that are looking to, evolve, make changes as things evolve or systems evolve. So we don't lobby the Public Service Commission. We are regulated by that commission. And I forget the other question, something about labor.
Smart metering.
So there are labor savings associated with implementing automated meters, and those savings, so any cost that we've identified in this filing are net of the savings. So those have already been taken into account, and all that would be in there would be the net difference.
Hello. Thank you for taking my question. I appreciate that in your rate filing you mentioned that part of that will be used for an investment in cleaner, greener technology. But as was mentioned before, I felt like your presentation really lacked a lot of details on that. So I just have one question. Can you give us an idea of the percent that the proposed rate increase, what percent of that will be designated towards developing and improving cleaner, greener, renewable technologies?
Yeah, from a percentage perspective, I don't think any of us would be able to specifically
How
answer
about
that.
what percent do you think will be dedicated to building and repairing gas pipelines and other infrastructure?
That's not the major driver. No.
So we're looking at it could be 2%, 1% renewable,
I
and
don't even-
99%
I don't even
gas.
want to speculate because
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you for taking my question. I just am back to basics. I honestly don't understand why an 8-inch pipeline going to Oneonta, which, yes, is older and has been leak-free, needs to be upgraded to a 12-inch pipe that can have triple the capacity. I take it with a grain of salt that you say that you're not planning in the future with this huge investment to increase your customer base. Can you tell me that you're not planning to increase your customer base with this pipe to Oneonta?
At this point, we have no plans. Certainly,
I'm speaking about in the future.
There's none that I'm aware of today, no.
Would it be possible in the future?
In theory, if you have a larger pipe, it would be possible if there's enough upstream capacity on upstream pipelines to bring more gas in, yes.
Okay. And I believe we have upstream capacity. Thank you.
Hi, you mentioned a few different measures to switch to renewable energy and address climate change issues as far as that. Are there any hard numbers on the amount of CO2 and other greenhouse gases those measures are projected to bring it down by? Like, what is the net effect you're hoping to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by instituting those measures?
I'm not, well, we certainly don't have that information tonight. And to be honest with you, I'm not clear that those measures are that laid out specifically. If they were, again, in the testimony of the Reform in the Energy Vision panel that we talked about on the website, has a lot of detail on
I understand that. You did mention to keep in line with New York State targets and goals for energy renewables and clean energy. So I assume that was based on these, you were talking about specific figures to reach those goals. So do you have specific figures as far as reduction targets and timelines? And how these measures are playing into that?
We don't have any specific measures, no.
Okay. And also the 2,500 charging stations for the electric vehicles is a good start, but considering the number of vehicles on the road today in this NYSEG area, that is still a very small number. And since everybody's been encouraged to switch over as rapidly as possible to electric, do you think an increase from 2,500, a dramatic increase from that number, is more in line with what the actual recommendations are for switching over to electric vehicles? Because 2,500 seems actually too small.
Well, that's our proposal, and there's a cost to those, so there's a cost to all our proposals. That's one of them. There's other parties to this case who may make different proposals to increase that, and we'll have to address it at that time. But we're going in as a starting point with 2,500.
Okay. I would say that looks like a number that needs to go way up, though. Okay. And is there any incentives? You said there's incentives for the heat pumps and things like that. Is there incentives for customers to change out from gas appliances to electric, like their furnaces and stoves? Because that seems like a good base to start from, since most customers around here do have a natural gas of one form or another in their house. So having an incentive built into when it comes time to switch out from that would be a good thing to institute.
Agree. So Terry mentioned the non-residential incentive. On the residential side, there's a separate proceeding that has us developing heat pump targets for residential, budgets, and then incentives. Okay. And so we did not propose it in this case because of the separate proceeding that's dealing with this, and it's dealing with this across the state, not just for NYSEG. Okay. So I imagine once that's set, we will be incorporating that into our targets. Okay. So we haven't made an explicit target here because of the separate proceeding.
There's another separate where that's going to come out. Okay, and I guess just as a general public, people that are concerned about climate change, we would like to see from NYSEG some hard numbers on how, as a company, you plan on reaching the reduction targets in CO2 emissions. And some of the measures you said today are steps toward that, but overall we're not seeing enough hard figures on how, as a company, you're planning to achieve that. So we would like to see some of those come out. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to have time for one more person to ask questions because it's getting close to 5 to the hour.
In Lawrence, New York, there's a solar farm that construction was completed on last November and is still not able to get online. I'm wondering if you know anything about why they're being held up.
I don't.
Okay. I also wonder how. I find it perfectly plausible that this company would invest an enormous or a much larger amount of money to enlarge a pipeline that it has no intention of utilizing to increase its profits, given that they've deferred maintenance on lines and trees for decades. And it's astonishing to me that ratepayers, because everyone knows deferred maintenance costs more, any businessman, which I unfortunately am, is because I have almost 50 NYSEG accounts. Your rates, a 23% increase in electric rates is going to be devastating for my business.
Sir, I just want to, I'd like you to ask a question because your comments you should reserve for
I'll reserve my comments.
To be on the record. This isn't on the record. Okay, we're going to take a break and we'll be starting up with the public statement hearing in around 4 minutes at 6 o'clock.